Admiral Zexthara stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Iron Dominion, and looked at the star map with disgust. 3 small red dots marked human colonies at the edge of the galaxy. These tiny worlds had refused to pay their taxes to the great hegemonic empire. Now he had to waste his time teaching these primitive creatures a lesson. "Sir, we are ready to jump to the first human system," his communications officer reported. The officer was a tall, blue-skinned Valyrian with 4 arms. Like most species in the Empire, the Valyrians had joined willingly after seeing the Empire's power. Zexthara was a Korthak, one of the Empire's ruling species. His thick gray skin could stop bullets, and his red eyes could see in total darkness. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. Dealing with humans would be the easiest job of his career. "Tell me again about these humans," Zexthara said. To his intelligence officer, the intelligence officer, a small green creature called a pixel, checked his datapad. "They are a young species, sir. They only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. They have maybe 30 colony worlds. Their technology is basic. Their ships are small and slow." Zexthara laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "And they think they can refuse the Empire? How many ships do they have?" "Our spies count maybe 200 ships total across all their colonies, sir. Most are cargo ships. They have perhaps 50 combat ships, all very small." The admiral shook his head. His single fleet had 300 warships. The Empire had sent 3 full fleets for this mission. It was like using a hammer to crush an ant. "What about their military?" Zexthara asked. "They call it the Terran Colonial Defense Force, sir. It seems to be mostly volunteers. They have no real military training. Their weapons are primitive projectile guns and simple energy beams." Zexthara walked to the large window that showed the stars. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. The bridge was huge, big enough to hold 200 crew members. The Iron Dominion was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. "Send a message to the other fleet commanders," he ordered. "Tell Admiral Krex and Admiral Vorth that this will be over in 3 days. We will be back home in time for the Empire Day celebration." His communications officer nodded and sent the message. Admiral Krex commanded the second fleet, made up of ships from the insect-like hive species. Admiral Vorth led the third fleet, which belonged to the machine race called the Centauri. All 3 fleets were heading to different human systems. Zexthara had been chosen to attack New Geneva, which intelligence said was one of the largest human colonies. The other 2 fleets would hit the colonies called Haven and Liberty Point. After they crushed these 3 worlds, the rest of the human colonies would surrender quickly. "Sir, we are getting a message from the human system," the communications officer said. "Put it on the main screen," Zexthara ordered. The screen showed a human female in a simple blue uniform. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She looked very young, maybe 25 years old in human terms. The Admiral had seen pictures of humans before, but this was his first time talking to one. "This is Colonel Sarah Chun of the New Geneva Defense Force," the human said. "We know you are coming. We ask you to turn back and leave our system in peace." Zexthara laughed again. The human's voice was steady, but he could see fear in her eyes, or at least he thought it was fear. "I am Admiral Zexthara of the hegemonic empire," he replied. "You will surrender your world and pay the taxes you owe. If you resist, we will destroy everything." The human woman looked directly at him through the screen. "We cannot pay your taxes, Admiral. We will not become slaves to your empire. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves." "With what?" Zexthara asked, amused. "Your 50 little ships? Your volunteer soldiers? We have 300 ships, each. One bigger than your largest vessel? We have what we need," Colonel Chun said, simply. Zexthara ended the communication and turned to his officers. "Begin the attack. Target their defense stations first, then their ships. Try not to damage the colony itself too much. We will need those humans to work in the mines." The human system called New Geneva had 1 yellow star and 5 planets. The humans lived on the second planet, which they also called New Geneva. It was a green and blue world with large oceans and forests. Intelligence reports said it had about 10 million human colonists. As his fleet moved into the system, Zexthara studied the enemy forces. He could see 12 human ships waiting near the planet. They were much smaller than his vessels. The largest human ship was maybe 500 meters long. His own ship was 10 times bigger. "Sir, we are detecting some strange energy readings," his science officer reported. The science officer was another Korthek, but smaller and more focused on technology than fighting. "What kind of energy?" Zexthara asked. "Unknown, sir. It seems to be coming from several asteroids in the system. Also from what looks like space stations." Zexthara looked at the tactical display. He could see the asteroids his science officer meant. There were about 20 of them scattered around the system. They seemed normal, just chunks of rock and metal floating in space. Probably mining operations, he decided. Humans are known to mine asteroids for resources. Ignore them for now, focus on the military targets. His fleet moved closer to the planet. The human ships started moving too, but not toward his fleet. Instead, they seemed to be moving away, toward the edge of the system. "They are running," his tactical officer said with satisfaction. "Should we pursue them?" Zexthara thought for a moment. It would be easy to chase down the human ships and destroy them, but it might be better to let some escape. When they reached other human colonies and told everyone how easily the Empire had won, it would make the other colonies surrender faster. Let them go for now, he decided. Focus on taking the planet. We can hunt down their ships later. But as his fleet got closer to New Geneva, something strange happened. The asteroids his science officer had noticed began to move. They were not floating randomly anymore. Instead, they were positioning themselves between his fleet and the planet. "Sir, those asteroids are not natural," his science officer said, voice filled with worry. "They have engines and weapons." Zexthara stared at the tactical display. The 20 asteroids had spread out into a defensive formation. Each one was the size of a small moon. If they had weapons and engines, they were not asteroids at all. They were space fortresses. How did our intelligence miss this? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, the space fortresses opened fire. Beams of pure energy, brighter than stars, reached across space and struck 3 of his ships. The beams cut through the ship's armor like it was paper. The ships exploded in balls of fire and debris. "Shields up, return fire," Zexthara shouted. His fleet began shooting back, but their weapons seemed to do no damage to the fortresses. The enemy ships were protected by some kind of energy barrier that absorbed or deflected every shot. More beams fired from the fortresses. 5 more of his ships were destroyed in seconds. The beams were incredibly powerful, far stronger than anything the Empire had ever seen. "Sir, we are also detecting movement from the human ships," his tactical officer reported. They were not running away. They were getting into attack position. On the display, Zexthara could see the 12 human ships coming back toward his fleet. But now there were not 12 ships. Now there were hundreds. Small fighter craft were pouring out of the larger vessels like angry insects from a nest. "Where did all those fighters come from?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. They must have been hidden inside the larger ships." The human fighters moved like nothing Zexthara had ever seen. They flew in perfect formation, making complex maneuvers that should have been impossible. They moved so fast and precisely that they seemed to be controlled by computers rather than living pilots. The fighters began attacking his ships. They were small, but their weapons were incredibly powerful. Swarms of them attacked each of his vessels, flying around them too fast for his gunners to target. "Admiral, we are losing ships rapidly," his tactical officer reported. "We have lost 47 vessels in the last 5 minutes. Zexthara could not believe what he was seeing. His mighty fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being torn apart by humans. These were supposed to be primitive creatures with basic technology. "Send a message to Admiral Krex and Admiral Vorth," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." Sir, we are receiving messages from the other fleets, his communications officer said. Admiral Krex reports that his fleet is under heavy attack at Haven Colony. Admiral Vorth says his fleet is being destroyed at Liberty Point. Zexthara felt something he had not experienced in many years. Fear. All three Imperial fleets were being defeated at the same time. This was not possible. The humans were supposed to have only 50 combat ships total. How were they fighting 3 separate battles across 3 different star systems? Another wave of energy beams from the fortresses destroyed 10 more of his ships. The human fighters continued their relentless attacks. His fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. Sir, we are receiving another communication from the humans, his communications officer said. Put it on screen, Zexthara ordered. Colonel Chun appeared again. She was still in the same blue uniform, but now she was on what looked like a military command center. Behind her, dozens of humans worked at computer stations. Admiral Zexthara, she said calmly. We told you to leave our system in peace. You chose not to listen. What are you? Zexthara demanded. Your intelligence report said you were primitive. This technology is impossible. Colonel Chun looked at him with what might have been pity. Your intelligence was wrong about many things, Admiral. We are not as primitive as you thought. And this is not our military. What do you mean? Zexthara asked. What you are fighting right now is the new Geneva Colonial Defense Force. We are civilians, Admiral. Farmers, miners, engineers, teachers. We are not soldiers. Zexthara stared at her. You are lying. I am not lying, Colonel Chun said. The real Terran military has not even been called yet. If you surrender now, we will let your surviving ships leave our system. On his tactical display, Zexthara could see that he had fewer than 100 ships left. In less than an hour, the humans had destroyed 2/3 of his fleet. And they were saying this was not even their real military. This is impossible, he whispered. Colonel Chun seemed to hear him. Admiral, your empire has been watching us for 50 years. You thought you knew everything about us? But you only saw what we wanted you to see. You saw our cargo ships and thought they were warships. You saw our colonial defense forces and thought they were our military. You never saw what we were really building. The communication ended. Around him, his crew worked desperately to keep the ship running as more energy beams struck their shields. Zexthara looked at the tactical display one more time. His mighty fleet was almost gone. The humans had destroyed the pride of the Empire with what they claimed were civilian forces. For the first time in his life, Admiral Zexthara began to wonder if the Empire had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Krex floated in the control fluid of his command ship, the Swarm Mother. The thick green liquid helped his insect body think faster and move quicker. Around him, hundreds of his hive soldiers worked at stations built into the curved walls. Of the sphere-shaped bridge, Krex had been confident when he entered the Haven system. His fleet of 250 ships was the fastest in the Empire. Hive ships moved like a swarm of deadly insects, coordinating perfectly through their shared mind connection. Now, 12 hours later, only 60 of his ships remained. The humans at Haven Colony had done something impossible. When his fleet arrived, they found what looked like a normal mining operation. Dozens of automated mining platforms floated around asteroids, extracting metals and rare elements. The platforms looked harmless, just simple industrial equipment. Then the platforms had opened up like metal flowers and revealed massive weapons. Inside, Fleet Commander, the mining platforms are firing again, his tactical coordinator buzzed through the shared mind link. Krex watched through his ship's sensors as another wave of projectiles came from the hidden weapons. But these were not ordinary projectiles. Each one was a chunk of metal accelerated to incredible speed by magnetic fields. When they hit his ships, they punched through armor like bullets through paper. How can mining equipment have such powerful weapons? Krex asked through the mind link. Unknown, Fleet Commander. Our analysis shows the weapons use magnetic acceleration technology. But the power levels are far beyond what mining platforms should have. Krex tried to process what was happening. The hive mind was good at understanding complex situations quickly. But this made no sense. The humans had disguised military weapons as mining equipment. They had planned this trap long before the Empire decided to attack. "Send fighters to destroy the platforms," Krex ordered. Thousands of small hive fighters launched from his ships. They moved in perfect formation like a cloud of deadly insects. The hive fighters were fast and maneuverable, designed to overwhelm enemies with numbers, but as they approached the mining platforms, something unexpected happened. The space around the platform suddenly filled with small objects. They looked like tiny satellites, no bigger than a person. "What are those?" Krex asked. Before anyone could answer, the small objects began moving. They flew through space faster than anything Krex had ever seen. Each one targeted a different hive fighter with perfect accuracy. The small objects were not weapons themselves. They were delivery systems. When they reached the fighters, they attached themselves to the hull and released some kind of energy pulse. The pulse shut down all the electronics in the fighter, leaving it floating helplessly in space. In less than 10 minutes, all of Krex's fighters were disabled. "Fleet Commander, we are receiving a communication from the humans," his communications officer reported. "Put it through the main display," Krex ordered. The display showed a human male in a brown uniform. He had gray hair and looked old for a human, maybe 50 years. Behind him, Krex could see other humans working at control stations. "I am Captain Martinez of the Haven Defense Coordinator Center," the human said. "Your fighters are disabled but not destroyed. Your pilots are alive. If you withdraw your fleet now, we will allow you to recover your fighters." Krex was confused. In every battle he had ever fought, enemies tried to kill as many as possible. Why were the humans keeping his pilots alive? "You have destroyed most of my fleet," Krex buzzed through the translator. "Why do you offer mercy now?" Captain Martinez looked directly at the camera. "Because we do not want to kill anyone, Admiral. We only want you to leave our system. Your empire attacked us. We are defending ourselves. You have hidden weapons," Krex accused. "You pretended to be miners." "We are miners," Captain Martinez said calmly. "Haven Colony produces 70% of the rare metals used in human space. But we are also prepared to defend ourselves." Krex did not understand. "How can miners have such advanced weapons?" Captain Martinez smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Admiral, every human colony has two purposes. The first purpose is what we tell everyone about. Haven mines rare metals. New Geneva grows food, Liberty Point builds ships. But every colony also has a second purpose. We prepare for war." "You have been planning to fight the Empire?" "We have been planning to fight anyone who threatens us," Martinez said. "Your empire is not the only danger in the galaxy. We learned long ago that we needed to be ready for anything." The communication ended. Krex floated in his control fluid and tried to understand what the human had told him. Every human colony was secretly a military base? How was that possible? "Fleet Commander, we are receiving emergency communications from Admiral Zexthara and Admiral Vorth," his communications officer reported. "Put them through," Krex ordered. The display split to show both other fleet commanders. Admiral Zexthara looked angry and frightened. His bridge showed damage from battle. Admiral Vorth's mechanical face showed no emotion, but Krex could see that many of his ship's systems were offline. "The humans have destroyed most of my fleet," Zexthara reported. "They have weapons hidden in asteroids, space fortresses disguised as rocks. My fleet has also suffered heavy losses," Admiral Vorth added in his mechanical voice. "The humans at Liberty Point have turned their shipyards into weapons factories. They are building combat ships faster than we can destroy them," Krex shared what he had learned at Haven. The three fleet commanders tried to understand what was happening. They had attacked 3 different human colonies and found the same thing at each one. Hidden weapons, secret military preparations, defenses that were far more advanced than anything in Imperial intelligence reports. "How did our spies miss this?" Zexthara asked. "Perhaps they did not miss it," Admiral Vorth suggested. "Perhaps The humans allowed our spies to see only what they wanted them to see. Krex thought about this. The hive mind was good at detecting deception, but even they had been fooled. The humans had hidden their true strength for decades. We need to retreat and report this to the Empire, Krex decided. Agreed, Zexthara said, but we must warn them. The humans are not what they seem. As Krex prepared to withdraw his remaining ships, he received another surprise. The disabled hive fighters began moving again. The humans had somehow repaired their electronics and were allowing them to return to the fleet. Why are they helping our fighters? One of his officers asked through the mind link. Unknown, Krex admitted. This behavior does not match any enemy we have encountered before. Captain Martinez appeared on the display again. Admiral Krex, your fighters are operational again. We have also sent medical supplies for your wounded. You are free to leave our system. Why do you help us? Krex asked. We came here to conquer your world. Because killing is not our goal, Martinez said. Surviving is our goal? If you leave us alone, we will leave you alone. Krex gathered his remaining ships and began the journey out of the Haven system. As they left, he noticed something that made his insect blood run cold. The mining platforms were folding back into their harmless appearance. The defensive satellites were hiding themselves again. Within hours, the system would look exactly like it had when his fleet arrived. Anyone who came to Haven system later would see only miners working peacefully on asteroids. They would never know about the hidden weapons unless they attacked. Fleet Commander, his tactical coordinator said through the mind link. If every human colony is like this, how many hidden weapons do they have across their territory? Krex did not want to think about the answer. Humans had 30 colony worlds. If each one was secretly a military fortress like Haven, New Geneva, and Liberty Point, then human military strength was far greater than anyone had imagined. But there was something else that worried him even more. The humans had been preparing these defenses for decades. They had planned for war long before the Empire attacked them. What had they been preparing to fight? As his fleet jumped to hyperspace, Krex composed a message for the Hegemonic Council. He had to warn them that the human threat was much greater than anyone knew. But even as he wrote the message, he wondered if it was already too late. The Empire had sent 3 fleets to crush a weak enemy. Instead, they had discovered that the enemy was not weak at all. Worse, they had revealed to the humans that the Empire was aggressive and dangerous. Krex had a terrible feeling that the humans would not wait for the Empire to attack again. Meanwhile, in the Liberty Point system, Admiral Vorth was having his own terrible realization. His mechanical body did not feel fear the way organic beings did, but his computer brain could calculate probabilities very accurately. The probability that the Empire had made a terrible mistake was 97%. The humans at Liberty Point had not just defended themselves. They had demonstrated manufacturing capabilities that seemed impossible. During the battle, Vorth had watched human shipyards build and launch new combat ships every few minutes. Each ship was different, as if the humans were testing different designs in real combat. Admiral, his communications officer reported in electronic tones, "We are receiving a message from the human commander." The display showed a human female with short black hair and dark skin. She wore a uniform that looked more like work clothes than military gear. "I am Director Sarah Kim of Liberty Point Industrial Complex," she said. "Admiral, your fleet fought well. We are impressed by your tactical systems." Vorth processed this statement. The human sounded like she was giving a professional evaluation, not gloating over victory. "You have defeated my fleet," Vorth stated. "Why do you compliment our performance?" Director Kim looked thoughtful. "Because we learn from every encounter." "Admiral, your ships have interesting design features. Your energy weapons are very efficient. We would like to understand how they work." "You want our technology?" Vorth asked. "We want to understand all technology," Kim said. "Knowledge helps us build better defenses, and better defenses help us survive." Vorth calculated the implications of this statement. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were studying their enemies and learning from them. Every attack on a human colony would make them stronger. You are using us as test subjects, Vorth realized. Director Kim nodded. In a way, yes. We did not choose this fight, Admiral. But since you brought it to us, we will learn everything. We can from it, the communication ended. Vorth gathered his surviving ships and prepared to leave the system. As they departed, he sent his own report to the Hegemonic Council. His recommendation was simple: do not attack the humans again. But Vorth calculated that the probability of the Empire following his advice was only 12%. The Empire had never backed down from a fight. Even when faced with clear evidence that they had underestimated their enemy, they would probably send more ships. Vorth hoped he was wrong. Because if the Empire escalated this conflict, he calculated that the probability of Imperial victory was less than 1%. And the probability that the humans were hiding even greater secrets was 99%. Emperor Thulin sat on his crystal throne in the great council chamber of Zentara Prime. The throne room was enormous, with walls that reached up into darkness and floors made of polished black stone. Hundreds of representatives from different species filled the chamber, all of them looking worried and confused. The Emperor was a member of the eternal race, beings who lived for thousands of years and considered themselves the natural rulers of the galaxy. His skin was pale blue and seemed to glow with inner light. His eyes were silver and showed no emotion as he listened to the reports from his defeated admirals. Explain to me again how 3 full Imperial fleets were destroyed by farmers and miners, the Emperor said. His voice was cold and quiet, but it carried to every corner of the massive chamber. Admiral Zexthara stood before the throne, his gray skin showing scars from the battle at New Geneva. Your Majesty, the humans were not what our intelligence reported. They had hidden weapons and advanced technology. Hidden weapons? The Emperor repeated slowly. You are telling me that our intelligence service, which has successfully mapped and conquered 300 worlds, was fooled by primitive humans. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew that questioning Imperial intelligence was the same as questioning the Emperor himself. Your Majesty, Admiral Vorth spoke in his mechanical voice, the humans demonstrated capabilities that exceed our current understanding. Their manufacturing speed, their weapons technology, their tactical coordination, it suggests they have been preparing for a large-scale conflict for many decades. Emperor Thulin stood up from his throne. He was tall, even for an Eternal, and when he moved the light seemed to follow him. Are you suggesting that these humans, who only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago, have been planning to fight the Empire that entire time? That is exactly what we are suggesting, Your Majesty, Admiral Krex buzzed through his translator. Every human colony appears to be a disguised military installation. They have been watching us and preparing. The Emperor walked down the steps from his throne. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched nervously. Many of them had joined the Empire willingly after seeing its power. Now they were hearing that a small human civilization had destroyed 3 Imperial fleets. Intelligence Director Zalen, the Emperor called, a tall, thin creature with purple skin and 6 arms, stepped forward. Director Zalen was a mindweaver, a species known for their ability to process vast amounts of information quickly. Your Majesty, Zalen said, bowing low. Explain how your department failed so completely. Director Zalen's 6 arms moved nervously. Your Majesty, we placed observation posts near every human system. We monitored their communications. We even had agents working inside human colonies. And none of them reported military preparations? They reported exactly what the humans wanted them to report. Zalen admitted. The humans appeared to be conducting normal colonial activities. Mining, farming, manufacturing civilian goods. There was no indication of military buildup. Emperor Thulin stopped walking and turned to face the intelligence director. Are you saying the humans deceived our agents? I'm saying the humans are far more sophisticated than we realized, Your Majesty. They created a perfect illusion. Our agents saw mining operations, but the mining equipment could transform into weapons. They saw shipyards building cargo vessels, but the cargo vessels could apparently transform into warships. The Emperor's silver eyes seemed to glow brighter. Transform? Yes, Your Majesty. According to Admiral Vorth's report, the humans at Liberty Point built new combat ships during the battle. Ships that appeared to be designed specifically to counter our weapons and tactics. A murmur ran through the chamber. The ability to design and build new warships during combat was something no species had ever demonstrated. What else do we know about human capabilities? The Emperor asked. Admiral Zexthara stepped forward again. Your Majesty, the humans used gravity weapons that could cut through our strongest armor. They had fighter craft that moved with impossible coordination. They demonstrated energy shields that could absorb our most powerful attacks. And most disturbing, Admiral Vorth added, they showed restraint. They could have destroyed our fleets completely, but they allowed survivors to escape. They even provided medical aid to our wounded. Emperor Thulin considered this information. In his 3,000 years of life, he had conquered many species. Some fought desperately and were destroyed. Others surrendered quickly and were absorbed into the Empire. But no species had ever defeated Imperial forces and then shown mercy. Director Zalen, what is your assessment of human military strength? The intelligence director's arms moved in complex patterns as he calculated. Based on what we have observed, Your Majesty, the humans may have military capabilities equal to or greater than our own. If every human colony is as well defended as the three we attacked, they could field a force comparable to the entire Imperial Navy. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Representatives from dozens of species began talking at once. The idea that humans, who seemed so primitive, could match the Empire's military power was almost impossible to believe. Silence. The Emperor commanded, and the chamber fell quiet instantly, but the damage was done. Word of the human victories was already spreading across the galaxy. The Emperor could see fear and uncertainty in the faces around him. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's subjects were questioning imperial supremacy. Your Majesty, came a voice from the crowd of representatives, if I may speak? The Emperor looked toward the voice. It came from Ambassador Keths, representative of the Vrex Dominion. The Vrex were one of the Empire's most loyal client species, fierce warriors who had served as Imperial shock troops for over a century. Speak, the Emperor said. Ambassador Keths was a large, muscular humanoid covered in red scales. His species was known for their straightforward nature and military expertise. Your Majesty, the Vrex Dominion has fought alongside Imperial forces in 47 campaigns. We have seen the Empire's enemies surrender or die. We have never seen an enemy show mercy to Imperial forces. What is your point, Ambassador? My point, Your Majesty, is that the humans are not acting like an enemy. They are acting like a defensive power. They did not attack our colonies. They did not invade our space. They only fought when the Empire attacked them first. The Emperor's expression grew dangerous. Are you questioning Imperial policy, Ambassador? Keths bowed his scaled head. Respectfully. No, Your Majesty. I am questioning whether we understand what we are truly facing. Before the Emperor could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed and automated voices announced a priority communication from the frontier. Put it through, the Emperor ordered. The main display showed Governor Yixel of the Outer Rim territories. The governor was a crystalline, a species made of living rock. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by obvious panic. Your Majesty, we have a situation developing across the Outer Rim. Multiple rebellions have started on 17 worlds. The subject species are declaring independence from the Empire. Emperor Thulin felt something he had not experienced in centuries, genuine surprise. Rebellions? Which species? The Aquatic Collective on Title VII has expelled all Imperial forces. The Tree Singers of Forest Prime have declared their independence. The mountain clans of Stone World have seized all Imperial installations. Your Majesty, it appears that news of the human victories has inspired other species to revolt. The chamber was filled with shocked silence. The Empire had controlled these species for decades. They had seemed completely loyal. "How many ships have we lost?" the Emperor asked. "Preliminary reports indicate that over 400 Imperial vessels have been captured or destroyed by rebel forces, Your Majesty. The rebellions appear to be coordinated." Admiral Zexthara spoke up. "Your Majesty, this cannot be a coincidence. The timing suggests the humans may have been in communication with other species." Director Zalen's 6 arms moved frantically as he processed information. "Your Majesty, I am now detecting increased communication traffic between human systems and several rebel worlds. The humans appear to be offering support to the rebellion movements." Emperor Thulan walked back to his throne, but he did not sit down. His mind, sharpened by thousands of years of experience, began to see a pattern that terrified him. "Director Zalen, how long have the humans been monitoring our communications?" "Unknown, Your Majesty. Based on their technological capabilities, possibly since they first achieved interstellar travel." "And how long have they been in contact with our subject species?" Director Zalen paused, his 6 arms stopping their movement. "Your Majesty, if they have been monitoring our communications for 50 years, they would know the locations of every Imperial installation, every patrol route, every weakness in our defenses." The Emperor finally understood the scope of what was happening. The humans had not simply prepared to defend their own colonies. They had spent 50 years studying the Empire, learning its weaknesses, and possibly preparing other species for rebellion. "Your Majesty," Admiral Vorth said, "I am receiving reports that human ships have been detected in 12 different rebel systems. They appear to be providing military support." "What kind of support?" the Emperor demanded. "Weapons, Your Majesty? Medical supplies? Technical advisors?" "The rebels are suddenly using advanced tactics and equipment they did not have before." Ambassador Keth stepped forward again. "Your Majesty, the Vrex Dominion requests permission to remain neutral in any conflict with the humans." The Emperor stared at the Vrex representative. The Vrex had been among the Empire's most loyal allies for over a century. If they were requesting neutrality, it meant they believed the Empire could not win. "Ambassador, the Vrex have served the Empire faithfully for generations. Why do you request neutrality now?" Keth looked directly at the Emperor, showing no fear. "Because the humans fight like the Vrex, Your Majesty. They prepare carefully. They strike only when necessary. They show mercy to defeated enemies. These are the qualities of honorable warriors. And the Empire is not honorable?" "The Empire conquers, Your Majesty. The humans defend. The Vrex respect strength, but we also respect justice. The humans appear to fight only for justice." Emperor Thulan felt anger building inside him, but also something else. For the first time in his long life, he felt uncertain. The Empire had always won through superior technology and overwhelming force. But the humans had superior technology and had demonstrated that they could defeat overwhelming force. "Your Majesty," Governor Yüksel reported from the display, "the situation is deteriorating rapidly. 3 more systems have declared independence in the last hour. Imperial forces are retreating from the entire Outer Rim sector." The Emperor made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Prepare the reserve fleets," he commanded, "all of them. I will personally lead the assault on the human systems." "Your Majesty," Admiral Zexthara said carefully, "perhaps we should attempt negotiation first." "The Empire does not negotiate with rebels," Emperor Thulan said coldly. "Gather every ship we have, call in every favor we are owed, mobilize every ally. We will show the galaxy that the Empire's power is absolute." But even as he gave the orders, Emperor Thulan wondered if he was making a terrible mistake. The humans had defeated 3 fleets while claiming to be civilians. What would happen when they faced the Empire's full military might? He was about to find out. Emperor Thulan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship was 15 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Around him, the largest military force in galactic history prepared For battle. 10,000 ships filled the space around Zentara Prime. Every Imperial fleet had been recalled. Every ally had been summoned. The Emperor had even hired mercenary fleets from beyond Imperial space. This was not just the Empire's military. This was the combined might of half the galaxy. Your Majesty, all fleets report ready for jump to hyperspace, Admiral Zexthara reported. He had been given command of the assault forces, a chance to redeem himself after his defeat at New Geneva. The Emperor looked at the tactical display showing his assembled forces. Massive dreadnoughts from the core worlds. Fast attack ships from the hive systems. Heavily armored fortress ships from the machine worlds. Exotic weapon platforms from species he had conquered decades ago. Target? Zexthara asked. Earth, the Emperor said simply. The Admiral looked surprised. Your Majesty, Earth is the human homeworld. Intelligence suggests it is heavily defended. Exactly, Emperor Thulin replied. We will not waste time attacking colonies. We will strike at the heart of human civilization. When Earth falls, all human resistance will collapse. The Emperor had spent weeks planning this assault. His intelligence services had finally located Earth, hidden deep in a region humans called the Sol System. The system appeared to have only normal defenses, nothing like the hidden fortresses found at the colonies. Your Majesty, Director Zalen reported from his station, our spies indicate that Earth has a population of 12 billion humans. It is their oldest world and the center of their government. Good, the Emperor said. When we destroy their homeworld, every human colony will surrender to save their species from extinction. The massive fleet jumped to hyperspace. The journey to the Sol System would take 6 hours. During that time, the Emperor reviewed everything his forces had learned. About human technology. The humans used gravity weapons and energy shields. Their ships could transform during battle. They had artificial intelligence systems that seemed to think as well as living beings. But none of that would matter against 10,000 ships attacking at once. Your Majesty, Admiral Zexthara said. As they traveled through hyperspace, I have been thinking about the human tactics we observed. What about them? They always seemed to know exactly what we were going to do. Their defenses were perfectly positioned to counter our attacks. It was as if they had fought us before and knew all our strategies. The Emperor had noticed this. 2. The humans had responded to Imperial tactics with impossible speed and accuracy, but he had an explanation. They have been watching us for 50 years, he said. They studied our military methods and prepared counters for everything we might do, but they cannot have prepared for an attack of this size. 6 hours later, the Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol System. The Emperor expected to see panic and confusion as the humans realized they were facing total destruction. Instead, he saw something that made his ancient blood run cold. The Sol System was not defended by hidden fortresses or disguised weapons platforms. It was defended by ships. Thousands and thousands of ships, arranged in perfect defensive formations around Earth and its moon, but these were not the small human vessels his admirals had fought at the colonies. These ships were enormous. The smallest ones were larger than Imperial dreadnoughts. The largest ones were bigger than space stations. Your Majesty, Admiral Zexthara said, his voice filled with shock. Our sensors are counting over 15,000 human vessels. The Emperor stared at the tactical display. Not only did the humans have more ships than his forces, but their ships were individually larger and more advanced than anything in the Imperial fleet. How is this possible? He whispered. Your Majesty, we are receiving a communication from the human fleet, the communications officer reported. Put it on the main screen, the Emperor ordered. The display showed a human female in a crisp white uniform. She had gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to look directly through the screen at the Emperor himself. Behind her, the Emperor could see a command center that was clearly military, not civilian like the ones at the colonies. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Space Navy, the human said. You are Emperor Thulin of the Hegemonic Empire? We have been expecting you. The Emperor felt something he had not experienced in 3,000 years. Fear. The human admiral spoke as if she had been planning for this moment for years. "You will surrender your homeworld?" the Emperor demanded, trying to project strength. He no longer felt. "Your colonies defeated small imperial fleets through deception. You cannot deceive 10,000 ships." Admiral Chun looked at him with what might have been pity. "Your Majesty, there was no deception at our colonies. What your admirals fought were our colonial defense forces. They are civilians trained to protect their homes. You are lying." "I am not lying," Chun said calmly. "What you see before you now is the Terran Space Navy. This is our military, your Majesty, the real one." The Emperor studied the human admiral's face, looking for signs of bluffing or fear. He saw neither. Instead, he saw the expression of someone who was absolutely confident in their position. "Even if you have more ships than we expected," the Emperor said, "you are still only humans. Your technology cannot match the combined fleets of the Empire." Admiral Chun touched something on her control panel. On the tactical display, the human ships began to move, but they did not spread out for battle as the Emperor expected. Instead, they formed into geometric patterns that seemed to serve no military purpose. "Your Majesty," Chun said, 50 years ago, when we first detected Imperial scouts watching our colonies, we made a decision. We would prepare for the day when the Empire attacked us. And we have had 50 years to study your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We have also had 50 years to develop countermeasures." As she spoke, the human ships completed their formation. The Emperor realized they had arranged themselves into a perfect sphere around his fleet, with Earth at the center. "Your Majesty," Admiral Zexthara reported urgently, "the human ships are charging weapons. But our sensors cannot identify the weapon types." On the screen, Admiral Chun continued speaking. "We did not want this war, Your Majesty. We hoped you would leave us alone. But since you have chosen to attack our homeworld, you will see what we have built to defend it." The space around the Imperial fleet suddenly filled with energy, but it was not weapons fire. Instead, it was some kind of field that seemed to lock onto every Imperial ship simultaneously. "What is happening?" the Emperor demanded. "Your Majesty, our ships are being held in place by some kind of gravitational field," Admiral Zexthara reported. "We cannot move. We cannot jump to hyperspace." The Emperor felt panic rising in his chest. His massive fleet, the pride of the Empire, was trapped like insects in a web. "Your weapons," he ordered, "fire everything." 10,000 Imperial ships opened fire at once. Energy beams, projectile weapons, plasma cannons, and exotic weapons from dozens of different species all struck the human defensive sphere. None of them had any effect. The human ships absorbed every attack without even appearing to notice. "Your Majesty," Admiral Chun said, "your weapons are based on technology that is 300 years old. We have had 50 years to develop better defenses." "Impossible," the Emperor breathed. "Your technology stopped advancing when you became the dominant power in the galaxy," Chun explained. "You had no enemies that could challenge you, so you stopped innovating. We, on the other hand, knew we would face enemies far more powerful than ourselves. We never stopped advancing." The Emperor looked around his bridge. His crew, representatives of dozens of different species, all stared at their instruments in shock and fear. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been neutralized in minutes. "What do you want?" the Emperor asked. "We want you to go home," Admiral Chun said simply. "We want you to stop attacking peaceful species. We want you to leave us alone. And if I refuse?" Admiral Chun's expression did not change. "Then we will do what we must to protect ourselves and our allies." "Allies?" The tactical display changed to show the entire galaxy. Red dots marked rebel systems where Imperial rule had collapsed. Green dots showed human colonies and allies. The Emperor was shocked to see that green dots now outnumbered red dots. "Your Majesty, while you were gathering your fleets for this attack, we were helping oppressed species gain their independence. The galaxy has changed. The Empire no longer controls half of known space." The Emperor processed this information. While he had been focused on destroying the humans, they had been systematically undermining his entire empire. You planned this, he realized, all of it. The defeats at the colonies, the rebellions, this confrontation, you planned everything. We prepared for everything, Chun corrected. We hoped it would not be necessary, but yes, we were ready. Your Majesty, Admiral Zextara said quietly, we are receiving surrender requests from throughout our fleet. Many ships are asking permission to defect to the Human Alliance. The Emperor looked at the tactical display again. Several Imperial ships were already moving away from the main fleet, apparently switching sides. The Vrex Dominion hereby officially joins the Human Liberation Alliance, came a broadcast from one of the defecting ships. The Aquatic Collective pledges support to the human cause, came another. The Crystalline Federation recognizes human leadership, came a third. One by one, species that had served the Empire for centuries were abandoning it. The Emperor watched his empire collapse in real time. Why, he asked Admiral Chun, why do they choose you over us? Because we offer them something you never did, Your Majesty. We offer them freedom. We offer them partnership instead of domination. We offer them a chance to grow and advance instead of serving as slaves. The Emperor stood alone on his bridge as more and more of his allies defected. His empire, built over thousands of years, was falling apart in a single day. What happens to me? He asked. Admiral Chun considered the question. That depends on you, Your Majesty. You can return to your remaining territories and rule them peacefully. You can even maintain the title of Emperor if you wish. But you will no longer be permitted to conquer other species or threaten peaceful worlds. And if I refuse these terms? Then your ship will be escorted to a prison facility, where you will be held until you change your mind. The Emperor looked around his bridge one more time. Half his crew had already left their stations and were preparing to surrender. His great fleet was dissolving before his eyes. For the first time in 3,000 years, Emperor Thulin admitted, "Defeat. I accept your terms," he said quietly. Admiral Chun nodded. Your remaining ships will be escorted back to Imperial space. Your people will not be harmed. But the age of the Empire is over, Your Majesty. A new age has begun. As the human ships began organizing the surrender, the Emperor had one final question. Admiral, what was the point of this demonstration? You could have destroyed my fleet. Why show mercy? Admiral Chun smiled for the first time during their conversation. Because destruction was never our goal, Your Majesty. Peace was our goal. And now, finally, the galaxy can have peace. 6 months after the surrender at Earth, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The station had been built in just 4 months by combined human and alien engineering teams. It floated in empty space between the old Imperial core worlds and the liberated Outer Rim territories. The assembly hall was enormous, designed to hold representatives from over 200 different species. Beings of every imaginable shape and size filled the curved rows of seats. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others lived in tanks of water or specialized atmosphere domes. A few existed as pure energy and appeared as glowing lights. Chun watched as the first Galactic Liberation Assembly prepared to begin. This was something that had never existed before in galactic history. A gathering where every species had an equal voice, regardless of their military power or technological advancement. Admiral Chun, came a familiar mechanical voice. She turned to see Admiral Vorth approaching. The former Imperial commander now served as a military advisor to the new alliance. Admiral Vorth, Chun replied with a nod. How are the integration? Protocols proceeding? Better than expected, Vorth said. Most former Imperial species are adapting well to the concept of voluntary cooperation. The Hive Collective has been particularly helpful in coordinating relief efforts. Chun was not surprised. After the surrender, many former Imperial military officers had chosen to join the Liberation Alliance. They brought valuable knowledge about galactic politics and logistics. More importantly, they brought legitimacy to the new government. What about the Eternal Worlds? Chun asked. Emperor Thulin has kept his word, Vorth reported. He has withdrawn all Imperial forces to the inner core systems. No aggressive actions have been taken against any liberated worlds. Chun nodded. The former emperor had been true to his agreement. His reduced empire now controlled only 12 star systems instead of the 300 it had once ruled. But those worlds were left in peace, and their inhabitants seemed content with their new, smaller borders. Admiral Chun, the assembly is ready to begin, announced Director Kim from Liberty Point. She now served as the Alliance's chief coordinator for industrial development. Chun walked to the speaker's platform at the center of the hall. As she moved, conversations in dozens of different languages gradually quieted. Translation devices built into every seat converted her words into whatever language each delegate needed to hear. Representatives of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Chun began, 6 months ago, our galaxy was ruled by fear. Today we gather in freedom. The hall erupted in sounds of approval. Some species clapped their hands or appendages. Others made musical tones. A few glowed brighter or changed colors to show agreement. We did not fight the Empire to become conquerors ourselves, Chun continued. We fought to give every species the right to choose their own path. Today we established the principles that will guide our alliance. She activated a holographic display that showed the charter they had spent months developing. The document was written in 53 different languages and communication methods. First principle, no species may be forced to join or remain in the alliance. Membership is voluntary and can be ended at any time. Murmurs of approval ran through the assembly. Many species had never heard of a government that allowed its members to leave freely. Second principle, no member species may attack or threaten another member species. Disputes will be resolved through negotiation and mediation. Third principle, every species has the right to develop their own technology, culture, and government without interference from others. Fourth principle, the Alliance will provide mutual defense against external threats, but will never be used for conquest or expansion. As Chun read each principle, she could see hope growing in the faces around her. These beings had lived under imperial rule for generations. The idea of true freedom was still new to many of them. Representatives, you may now vote on whether to adopt this charter. Chun announced that the voting process took 3 hours because each species had different methods of expressing their choice. Some used electronic devices, others sang specific songs. A few species voted by changing the color of their skin or releasing particular scents. When the counting was finished, Director Kim announced the results. 207 species. Vote in favor, 0 vote against, 15 abstain. The charter is adopted. The hall exploded in celebration. Beings who had been enemies for centuries embraced each other. Species that had never met before began introducing themselves and sharing their cultures. Chun felt a mixture of pride and worry. They had accomplished something amazing by creating the first truly democratic galactic government. But she knew the real challenges were just beginning. Admiral Ambassador Kess of the Vrex approached the platform. My people have a question about defense arrangements. What kind of question? Chun asked. The Vrex are warriors. We understand military strength. But we do not understand how the Alliance will defend itself without a centralized military command. It was a good question. Unlike the Empire, which had controlled all military forces directly, the Alliance allowed each species to maintain their own defense forces. Ambassador, our strength does not come from centralized control, Chun explained. It comes from voluntary cooperation. When one member is threatened, others will choose to help because it is in their interest to maintain peace. But what if some members choose not to help? Then they are free to make that choice, Chun said. We will never force anyone to fight. But we believe that free beings will defend freedom when they see it threatened. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from the communication center. Cheung received a message on her personal device that made her blood run cold. Representatives, she announced to the assembly, we have just received a priority signal from our deep space monitoring. Stations, something is approaching our galaxy from intergalactic space. The hall fell silent. Every being turned to look at the main display as it showed images from the most distant sensors. What they saw was impossible to comprehend. Ships, thousands of them. But these were not ships like anything in the galaxy. They were massive, dark, and moved in formations that suggested intelligence far beyond anything any known species had achieved. How far away are they? Ambassador Keths asked. Approximately 6 months at their current speed, Chung replied. They appear to be heading directly for the galactic core. Director Kim stepped forward. Admiral, these ships are larger than anything we have ever built. The smallest ones are the size of small moons. Chun studied the images carefully. The approaching fleet was enormous, but there was something else that worried her more. The ships moved with perfect coordination, as if they were controlled by a single intelligence. Representatives, Chun said to the assembly, this is why humanity prepared for war. This is what we were really getting ready to fight. A delegate from the Crystalline Federation, a being made of living crystal, spoke up. You knew this was coming? We suspected, Chun admitted. 50 years ago, our deep space sensors detected signs of massive technological activity in the space between galaxies. We calculated that whatever was out there would eventually reach our galaxy. Why did you not tell us? Demanded a representative from the Aquatic Collective. Because we hoped we were wrong, Chun said honestly. And because we knew that if we told the Empire, they would have tried to conquer the entire galaxy to prepare for the threat. We believed that a united, free galaxy would be stronger than a conquered one. The assembly erupted in dozens of conversations. A species tried to understand what they were facing. Order! Ambassador Keths called out, using his powerful voice to quiet the crowd. Admiral Chun, what do you propose we do? Chun looked around the assembly hall at the representatives of over 200 species. 6 months ago, most of them had been enemies or strangers. Now they were allies bound together by choice rather than force. We do what free beings do when faced with a threat, she said. We stand together. We prepare together, and we defend our freedom together. Admiral, the Vrex ambassador said. The Vrex pledge all our military forces to the defense of the galaxy. The Hive Collective offers our manufacturing capabilities, announced Admiral Krex. The Crystalline Federation will share our defensive technologies, added their representative, one by one. Species that had spent centuries fighting each other began volunteering to work together against the approaching threat. Chun felt a surge of hope. This was what she had dreamed of when humans first began preparing for galactic war. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not empire, but alliance. Representatives, she said, we have 6 months to prepare. 6 months to show these invaders that our galaxy is protected by something more powerful than any empire. It is protected by the free choice of free beings to defend each other. As the assembly began organizing the galaxy's defense, Chen received another private message. This one was from Colonel Martinez at Haven Colony. Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting something else. Behind the main invasion fleet, there are signs of even larger ships. Much larger. We estimate that what we are seeing now may only be the advanced scouts. Shun read the message twice before deleting it. The galaxy would learn about the larger ships soon enough. For now, they needed to focus on the immediate threat, but privately, she was grateful that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. The Empire had been just practice. The real test was coming. Admiral, Director Kim said quietly, do you really think we can win against those ships? Chen looked at the display showing the approaching fleet, then looked around the assembly hall where hundreds of species were already working together to plan their defense. Director, the Empire thought they were facing primitive colonists with simple weapons. These invaders think they are facing a divided galaxy full of competing species. They have no idea what they are really up against. What are they up against? Chun smiled. They are about to face something that has never existed before in galactic history. A truly united galaxy, fighting not because they are forced to, but because they choose to. They are about to discover that free beings defending their freedom are the most dangerous force in the universe. As the assembly worked through the night, planning the defense of their galaxy, Chun reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. The Empire was gone. Hundreds of species were free, and now they would all stand together against whatever was. Coming from the dark space between galaxies, the humans had prepared for war so they could choose peace. Now, the entire galaxy would discover what that choice really meant. In the distance, the dark ships continued their approach, unaware that they were heading toward a galaxy that had learned to fight not for conquest, but for freedom. And freedom, as any human could tell them, was worth fighting for.
The 5 humans stood in the great waiting hall of Centaurus Station, their faces turned upward at the massive dome of swirling stars above them. Ambassador James Reed adjusted his formal blue uniform for the 10th time in an hour. After decades of preparation, humanity's moment had finally come. "Stop fidgeting, James," said Dr. Anna Reyes, the science advisor. "You're making us all nervous." Reed forced his hands to his sides. "Sorry. Hard to believe we're finally here, representing all of Earth." Captain Marcus Foster, their military escort, kept his eyes on the alien guards positioned around the chamber. "Just remember the plan. Be respectful, be confident, and don't show fear." The waiting hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Tall, slender aliens with blue skin spoke in musical tones. Bulky reptilian creatures surveyed the room with multiple eyes. Small hovering orbs of light pulsed in patterns near the ceiling. "Look at them all," whispered Lisa Chen, the cultural liaison. "Hundreds of species, living and working together. And today, we join them." The 5th member of their team, Technical Director Omar Patel, tapped notes into his handheld device. "Assuming they vote yes, the Council has rejected 17 species in the last century alone." Reed shook his head. "That won't happen to us. Earth has achieved every benchmark they set. Clean energy, unified government, peaceful colonies on Mars and Luna, and our warp drive technology is already compatible with Council standards." A chime sounded through the hall, and the massive doors at the far end slid open. A tall, thin alien with crystalline skin approached them. "The Luminar," Lisa whispered, "one of the founding Council species." The crystalline being bowed slightly. "The Council will now hear Earth's petition. Follow me." The 5 humans walked behind the Luminar through the grand doors into the Council chamber. The circular room stretched upward for what seemed like hundreds of meters, with seating arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from dozens of species watched as the humans entered. At the center of the room stood a circular platform. The Luminar gestured toward it. "Present your case there, humans." Reed took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform. A beam of light enveloped him, and his image was projected throughout the chamber. He began the speech he had practiced for months. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council, I stand before you representing the United Earth Government and all of humanity. For 2 centuries, we have watched the stars, knowing we were not alone. For decades, we have worked to meet your standards for admission. Today, we come before you as equals, ready to join this great community of species." Reed spoke for 20 minutes, detailing Earth's achievements, its peaceful unification after the resource wars, the environmental restoration projects, and the flourishing colonies across the solar system. He showed holographic images of Earth's cities, now green and sustainable, of the underwater habitats in Earth's oceans, and the magnificent domes of New Armstrong City on Luna. When he finished, there was silence. Then, from the highest tier, a being with dark, swirling skin that seemed to contain tiny stars spoke. "A Voidborn, one of the telepathic elder races. We have reviewed your submission, Ambassador Reed. We have studied your species extensively." Reed smiled. "Then you know we are ready to join the galactic community." The Voidborn's voice grew cold. "We know that humanity is dangerously unpredictable. Your history is stained with warfare and destruction. You claim peace, yet your military budgets remain substantial. You speak of unity, yet cultural divisions persist. Reed's smile faded. With respect, every species has a troubled past. We have learned from ours and grown beyond it. A different council member, a being with 6 arms and insect-like features, raised a limb. The human brain still contains primitive structures that trigger aggression. Your species reaches for the stars while still carrying the instincts of planet-bound predators. That's not fair. Dr. Reyes stepped forward. Our biology doesn't determine our destiny. We've proven that through centuries of progress. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The luminar raised a crystalline hand. The human delegate will respect council protocol. Only the designated ambassador may speak. Reed felt sweat forming on his brow. This wasn't going as planned. Council members, I ask that you judge us on our actions, not on theoretical concerns about our nature. The Voidborn spoke again. We have deliberated extensively before your arrival. The decision is made. A holographic display appeared above the chamber. Symbols representing each council species appeared, all glowing red. The council vote is unanimous. Earth's petition for membership is denied. Reed stood in shock. Unanimous. But we weren't even given a chance to address your concerns. The council's wisdom spans millennia. Human. We have seen species like yours before. The risks outweigh the benefits of your admission. Captain Foster stepped forward. This is outrageous. At least give us the courtesy of a proper hearing. Security drones moved closer to the human delegation. The Luminar's voice hardened. Earth is to remain isolated within its solar system. Limited trade with approved council worlds will continue under supervision. In time, perhaps centuries, your petition may be reconsidered. Reed struggled to maintain his composure. And if we don't accept these terms? The chamber darkened slightly. The Voidborn's star-flecked skin pulsed. Any unauthorized expansion beyond your system will be considered an act of aggression against the Council. We have the means to enforce our boundaries. Ambassador, do not test us. Within an hour, the human delegation was escorted back to their ship. As they departed Centaurus Station, they sat in stunned silence on the bridge, watching the massive structure shrink in the view screen. What do we do now? Lisa finally asked. Reed stared at the stars. We go home and tell our people the truth. The door to the galaxy has been slammed in our face. 3 days later, United Earth President Maria Torres stood before the Global Assembly in New Geneva. Billions watched the broadcast across Earth and its colonies. Today, I must share difficult news. The Galactic Council has denied our petition for membership. She paused as shocked murmurs swept through the assembly. They have ordered us to remain confined to our solar system, claiming our species is too unpredictable, too dangerous to join their community. Torres' expression hardened, but we will not accept their judgment as final. If the existing order of the galaxy has no place for humanity, then we will create our own place among the stars. The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. Today, I am authorizing the formation of the Pathfinder Initiative. Our best ships, our brightest minds, will venture beyond Council space to the unexplored regions they have deemed too dangerous to settle. We will forge our own path, make our own allies, and build our own future. Torres looked directly into the camera, her eyes burning with determination. The Council believes they have contained us. They are wrong. They have merely redirected us, and they will soon discover that humanity, when faced with a closed door, doesn't just knock louder. We build our own house. As the speech ended, Reed watched from the back of the hall. For the first time since leaving Centaurus Station, he smiled. The Council had made a critical mistake. They had given humanity something more powerful than acceptance. They had given them something to prove. 5 years after Earth's rejection from the Galactic Council, the deep space exploration vessel Pathfinder drifted silently at the edge of what the Council called the Dark Sectors. Commander Thomas Walker stood on the bridge, looking out at the swirling space anomalies that marked the boundary. Behind these strange energy formations lay vast regions of unexplored space, regions the Council races avoided. "Status report," Walker said, his voice steady despite the tension on the bridge. Lieutenant Ben Morris checked his screens. "All systems normal, Commander. The stealth systems are working perfectly. No sign of Council patrols." Walker nodded. "Dr. Morgan, are you ready?" Dr. Eliza Morgan looked up from her station, where complex equations flowed across multiple screens. Her eyes showed both excitement and doubt. "As ready as we'll ever be," she said. "The stabilizers should work in theory, but no one has ever tried to pass through these anomalies before." Walker walked to the center of the bridge. "The Council thinks these anomalies are too dangerous to cross. They've used them as natural barriers to keep species contained. But today, we proved them wrong." He turned to the communications officer. "Last message to Earth." "Received and acknowledged, sir." President Torres sends her regards and says, "Make history." Walker took a deep breath. "Helm, take us in, 1/4 power. Activate the Morgan stabilizers." The Pathfinder moved forward slowly. As they approached the swirling energy barrier, 4 large panels extended from the ship's hull. Blue energy flowed from the panels, reaching out toward the anomalies. Where the energies met, the chaotic patterns of the anomaly began to smooth and organize. "It's working," Dr. Morgan said, her voice rising with excitement. "The stabilizers are creating a path." The ship shuddered as it entered the anomaly. Lights flickered across the bridge. Warning alarms sounded briefly, then fell silent. "Hull integrity holding," Morris reported. "All systems functioning within normal parameters." For 3 tense minutes, the Pathfinder pushed through the energy barrier. The view screen showed only swirling patterns of light. Then, suddenly, the chaos cleared, and new stars spread out before them. "We're through," Walker said quietly. Then louder, "We're through. Navigation, confirm our position." The bridge erupted in cheers. Humans had just crossed a barrier that had stopped the Council races for thousands of years. "Scanning nearby systems," the science officer announced. "Commander, you're not going to believe this. We've got multiple habitable planets within range. The closest is just 2 days away at standard speed." Walker smiled. "Set course. Let's see what the Council has been missing." 2 months later, Walker stood on the surface of a green, vibrant world that humanity had named New Dawn. Around him, prefabricated structures of the first human outpost beyond Council space were being assembled. The air was sweet and clean, filled with the sense of alien vegetation that remarkably resembled Earth's forests. Dr. Morgan approached, carrying a tablet. "The soil tests came back perfect," she said. "We can grow Earth crops here with minimal adaptation. And the local plants. Some contain compounds that could revolutionize medicine." Walker looked up at the blue-green sky where 3 small moons were visible even in daylight. A paradise, hidden behind a curtain of energy that scared away the Council for centuries. "And not just this world," Morgan added. "The survey teams have found 2 more habitable planets in nearby systems, and the minerals in the asteroid belts. We've detected elements the Council considers rare and precious." Walker's communicator beeped. "Commander, you need to see this," came the urgent voice of Security Chief Alex Rivera. Walker and Morgan hurried to the outpost perimeter, where Rivera waited with a small team of security personnel. They were watching a clearing in the nearby forest. "We detected movement," Rivera explained. "At first we thought it was just local wildlife. But then, from the trees emerged a group of beings unlike any humans had seen before. They walked on 4 legs, with bodies covered in short blue fur. Their upper torsos were more humanoid, with 4 arms ending in delicate, 6-fingered hands. Their heads were elongated with large, gentle eyes. They'd been watching us for days, Rivera said. They just now decided to show themselves. Walker stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he carried no weapons. First contact, he whispered. And the Council has no idea. The leader of the aliens mimicked Walker's gesture, raising two of its four hands. 6 months later, the human presence in the dark sectors had grown dramatically. New Dawn now hosted a thriving settlement of over 500 people. The native species, who called themselves the Nilari, had proven peaceful and curious. They possessed no space travel technology, but had a rich culture and advanced understanding of their world's ecosystem. More importantly, Dr. Morgan had made a breakthrough that changed everything. In a secure lab near the center of the settlement, she demonstrated her invention to Walker and a team from Earth. The Council monitors all standard faster-than-light communications, she explained. But by using principles we discovered studying the anomalies, we've created a completely new communication system. She activated a device on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing President Torres back on Earth. The signal is instantaneous, Morgan continued proudly, and completely undetectable by Council technology. We can coordinate our entire expansion without them knowing. Torres's image smiled. Excellent work, Dr. Morgan. Commander Walker, your reports have exceeded our highest hopes. The Council thought they could contain humanity within our solar system. Instead, they pushed us toward our greatest adventure. Walker nodded. And we're just getting started, Madam President. We've made contact with traders from the outer Council worlds. There are many species who resent Council restrictions. Some have already expressed interest in joining our settlement. Then proceed with the next phase, Torres said. Establish more outposts. Invite those who wish to join us. The Council created barriers meant to contain us, not realizing they were actually protecting the resources we would need to build something new. After the transmission ended, Walker walked to the window of the command center. In the distance, human engineers worked alongside Nilari builders, combining their knowledge to create structures that blended the best of both cultures. They banned us from their council, he said quietly, so we're building our own future. Morgan joined him at the window. And based on what we've seen so far, it might be better than anything they have. A week later, the first Council patrol ship discovered a human trading post near the edge of the dark sectors. When they attempted to shut it down by force, they discovered their weapons and engines mysteriously failed when faced with technology derived from the very anomalies they had feared for so long. The message was clear. Humanity would not be contained. Their path to the stars would not be blocked. Their empire was just beginning. 10 years had passed since humanity's first steps into the dark sectors. What began as a single outpost on New Dawn had grown into a network of 27 thriving colonies across 15 star systems. Admiral Thomas Walker, promoted from his former rank of commander, stood in the grand meeting hall on New Dawn, now a bustling city of 30,000 humans and nearly as many aliens from various species. They're ready for you, Admiral, said his aide, Lieutenant Emma Santos. Walker straightened his uniform and entered the circular chamber where representatives from 12 different species waited. Some faces were familiar. The blue-furred Nilari, the first aliens humans had encountered beyond the anomalies. Others were newer allies. The insect-like Kareth with their compound eyes and delicate wings, the bulky rock-skinned Trell, and the Forge units, mechanical beings who had broken free from their creators in Council space. Friends, Walker began. 10 years ago, humans arrived here as explorers, rejected by the Galactic Council. Today, we gather as partners in the greatest opportunity of our lifetimes. He activated the holographic display in the center of the room, showing the mapped regions of the dark sectors. Blue dots represented established colonies, green showed resource-rich systems, and red marked the boundaries with Council space. The Council believes they contained us, Walker continued. Instead, they pushed us towards something remarkable. Together, we have built communities where each species contributes equally. We trade fairly. We share knowledge freely. We defend each other without question. The representative of the Kareth, a female named Varric, raised one of her 4 arms. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Walker smiled. I propose we formalize what we've already built, a frontier alliance where all member species have equal voice regardless of their age, technology level, or population size. Unlike the Council, we will have no senior members who control the votes of others. Murmurs of approval spread through the chamber. The Council's strict hierarchy had long been a source of frustration for many species. "The humans offer this in good faith?" asked Gronth, the massive Trell representative, "even though your technology currently leads our colonies in many areas." "Especially because of that," Walker answered. "Earth remembers what it feels like to be dismissed as too young or too unstable to have a voice. We won't repeat the Council's mistakes." A Forge unit stepped forward, its metal body gleaming under the chamber lights. "What will be our response if the Council discovers the full extent of our alliance? They have already attempted to disrupt our trading posts." Walker's expression grew more serious. "We will defend our borders but avoid unnecessary conflict. Our goal isn't war with the Council, but to build something better beyond their reach." The discussions continued for hours, with representatives raising concerns, suggesting amendments, and finally reaching agreement. By the meeting's end, the Frontier Alliance was born, with its founding charter signed by representatives of all 12 species. 6 months after the Alliance's formation, Dr. Eliza Morgan led Walker through her newest laboratory on New Dawn. Now serving as the Alliance's chief science director, Morgan had assembled a team of researchers from every member species. "The results are better than we ever imagined," she explained excitedly. "By combining human adaptive thinking with Kareth biological engineering and Forge unit quantum computing, we've developed technologies the Council won't achieve for centuries." Walker looked at the various projects underway in the massive facility. Nilari botanists worked alongside human geneticists to develop crops that could thrive on multiple worlds. Trell engineers and Forge units collaborated on mining equipment that could operate in environments previously considered too hostile. "This is the real strength of the Alliance," Walker observed. "The Council keeps species separated in a hierarchy. We bring them together as equals." Morgan nodded. "And speaking of breakthroughs, there's something you need to see." She led him to a secure section of the lab where a team worked around a biological containment unit. Inside, microscopic organisms glowed with faint blue light. 3 days ago, we received a distress signal from the Peleos system. "Council space," Morgan said. "They're suffering from a pandemic that has already killed millions. The Council's response has been tied up in bureaucracy for weeks while they debate the political implications of various medical interventions." Walker frowned. "What does this have to do with us?" One of our Kareth researchers recognized the disease description. Something similar affected their colony centuries ago. "With their biological knowledge and our advanced computing systems, we've synthesized a cure." She gestured to the glowing organisms. "These engineered phages will eliminate the pathogen without harming the host." Walker considered this information carefully. The Peleos system is well within Council territory. Sending aid would reveal much about our capabilities. It would also save millions of lives, Morgan countered, and show the galaxy what kind of neighbors we choose to be. 2 weeks later, a fleet of unmarked medical ships arrived in the Peleos system. They transmitted a simple message: "We bring medicine for your sick. No payment required. No political conditions attached." When questioned about their origins, the crews simply identified themselves as representatives of the Frontier Alliance. They delivered the cure, trained local medical teams in its use, and departed before Council military vessels could arrive to investigate. Within a month, the pandemic was contained. Word spread quickly through Council space about the mysterious alliance that had provided aid when the Council had only offered committees and deliberation. In his office on New Dawn, Walker received the reports with satisfaction. On his display screen, President Torres smiled from her office on Earth. The medical mission was a success on every level, Walker reported. Millions saved, and countless more now questioning Council propaganda about dangerous human expansion. Torres nodded. "And our other initiatives?" "The Alliance grows stronger each day," Walker replied. 3 more species have petitioned to join, including the Vexari, who previously had observer status on the Council, but were never granted full rights. And our defenses. Walker's expression grew more serious. Our early warning systems show increased Council patrol activity near our borders. They're concerned, but still underestimate our capabilities. The Alliance Defense Fleet now includes ships from all member species, with integrated technologies that work seamlessly together. Torres leaned forward. The Council rejected us because they feared what humanity might become. In pushing us away, they created exactly what they feared most, not just humans expanding through space, but humans bringing together others who were also overlooked and underestimated. There's a saying that's become popular in the colony worlds, Walker said with a slight smile. Earth was banned from the Council, so they made their own empire. But what we're building isn't an empire in the old sense. There are no subjects, only partners. Torres nodded. Let's keep it that way, Admiral. That's our true strength, and the Council's greatest miscalculation. As the communication ended, Walker looked out his window at the bustling city below, where humans worked and lived alongside a dozen alien species. The Council had tried to isolate humanity from the galactic community. Instead, they had set it free to create a new one. 20 years after Earth's rejection, the Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. High Chancellor Vex of the Luminar pounded his crystalline fist against the speaking platform, sending shimmering ripples across his translucent skin. The human problem can no longer be ignored, he declared to the assembled representatives. What began as a minor irritant has grown into an existential threat to Council authority. Holographic displays around the chamber showed maps of the so-called Frontier Alliance territory. Over 200 star systems, spanning what had once been considered uninhabitable space. Trade routes connected Alliance worlds to the outer regions of Council space, and the influence of this upstart coalition grew daily. The humans were warned to remain in their home system, Vex continued. Instead, they have created an empire that now rivals our central worlds in industrial output. Worse, they spread dangerous ideas about equality between elder and younger species. A representative of the Voidborn, their skin containing swirling galaxies, rose to speak. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The Alliance provided aid during the Pelios pandemic when our response was delayed. Many Council worlds now view them favorably. Precisely why they must be contained now. Vex countered. They undermine our authority through these gestures. The Council has maintained galactic order for 10,000 years by ensuring proper hierarchy between species. The human notion that all voices deserve equal weight is dangerous chaos. After hours of heated debate, the Council voted. The decision was not unanimous, a rarity in Council proceedings, but the majority approved military action to contain the human-led rebellion and re-establish Council authority in the contested regions. On the Alliance border world of Threshold Point, Admiral Walker received the intelligence report with grim determination. The largest Council armada ever assembled was approaching Alliance space, over 200 warships with enough firepower to reduce entire planets to ash. In the command center of the Alliance Defense Station, representatives from each member species gathered around the strategic display. Walker studied the incoming Council fleet formation. They still think like conquerors, he observed. Their ships are positioned to maximize firepower against planetary targets, not for space combat with our fleet. Varric, now the Kareth High Commander, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. The Council believes this show of force will cause our alliance to fracture. They expect the non-human members to abandon your leadership when faced with the Council's might. Walker nodded. That's been their mistake from the beginning. They see everything through the lens of dominance and submission. He turned to face the gathered representatives. I won't order anyone to fight. Each member world must decide for themselves. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Gronth, the massive Trell, stepped forward. The Trell remember 1,000 years under Council rule. We were allowed to mine our worlds for resources, but never to use those resources for our own advancement. The Alliance has given us 20 years of true partnership. We stand with humans. One by one, Each representative pledged their support. The Forge units, the Nilari, the Kareth, and a dozen others, all chose to stand together. Walker activated the communication system. All Alliance vessels, this is Admiral Walker. The Council fleet will reach threshold point in 36 hours. Our mission is defensive only. I repeat, defensive only. We protect our borders, but do not seek to destroy our opponents. The Battle of Threshold Point began at dawn, as measured on New Dawn. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their massive dreadnoughts at the center surrounded by layers of supporting cruisers and fighters. Facing them was the combined Frontier Defense Fleet, ships of every shape and size, designed by different species but integrated into a cohesive force. At the center was the Defiance, Admiral Walker's flagship, built with technology from all Alliance members. Walker stood on the bridge, watching the Council fleet approach on the main viewer. "Send the message," he ordered. The communications officer nodded. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, sir." Walker's voice transmitted to every Council vessel. "This is Admiral Thomas Walker of the Frontier Alliance. Your fleet has entered Sovereign Alliance space. We request you withdraw immediately to avoid unnecessary conflict. We have no desire for war with the Council." The response came from High Chancellor Vex himself, his crystalline face filling the view screen. "This is not sovereign space, human. These regions belong to the Council by historical right. Your illegal colonies will be dismantled, and your ships escorted back to your home system as originally decreed." Walker shook his head. "We built homes here. We made friends here. We created something new here. We will defend it." Vex's expression hardened. "Then you will face the consequences of your defiance." The Council fleet opened fire, thousands of energy weapons lighting up the blackness of space. But instead of striking Alliance ships, the beams encountered a defensive barrier unlike anything the Council had seen before, a modification of the same technology humans had developed to pass through the dark sector anomalies. "Stabilizer shields holding," reported the Forge Unit Tactical Officer. "Council weapons operating at 30% effectiveness." Walker nodded. "Execute defense pattern Alpha. Remember, disable, don't destroy." The Alliance fleet moved with unexpected coordination. Smaller ships darted between the massive Council vessels, firing precisely calibrated pulses that disrupted their targeting systems. Larger Alliance cruisers fired specialized weapons that disabled Council engines without breaching hulls. On the Council flagship, Vex watched in growing horror as his supposedly superior fleet was systematically immobilized. "Impossible," he whispered as another dreadnought lost power. 3 hours into the battle, over half the Council fleet hung powerless in space. Not a single ship had been destroyed, but they could neither fight nor flee. Walker opened a channel to all vessels. "Council ships, your vessels have been disabled but not damaged. Your life support remains operational. We will now begin rescue operations for any crew requiring medical assistance." Alliance medical ships moved among the disabled Council vessels, providing aid to injured crew members. The Council commanders, trained to expect either victory or death, were confused by this approach. On his flagship, Vex received reports of Alliance medics treating Council wounded with the same care as their own. "Why?" he demanded. "Why not destroy us while they have the advantage?" The Voidborn counselor beside him watched the rescue operations on the view screen. Perhaps because their goal was never conquest. They truly are building something different. The battle's outcome was broadcast across both Alliance and Council networks. Citizens throughout Council space watched as the supposedly dangerous Alliance forces saved the lives of their defeated opponents. Walker stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the rescue operations. Lieutenant Santos approached with a data tablet. "Sir, we're receiving signals from 17 worlds in Council space," she reported. "They're requesting information about joining the Alliance." Walker nodded, unsurprised. The Council tried to maintain control through fear and hierarchy. "We showed the galaxy another way is possible." As Alliance ships began towing disabled Council vessels to neutral space for repairs, Walker sent a final message to High Chancellor Vex. "We will continue to defend our borders, but we remain open to peaceful dialogue whenever the Council is ready. The future of the galaxy shouldn't be decided through force, but through cooperation." The Battle of Threshold Point was over. The confrontation the Council had planned for 20 years had lasted mere hours, and though they didn't yet realize it, the Council's defeat marked the beginning of their transformation. 25 years after Earth's rejection from the Galactic Council, Ambassador James Reed stepped carefully from his transport onto the landing platform of New Dawn's Grand Assembly building. At 78 years old, his hair had turned white, and his steps were slower, but his eyes remained sharp as they took in the magnificent structure before him. "Quite different from Centaurus Station, isn't it?" asked President Maria Torres, who had come personally to greet him. Though she had served as Earth's president for over 2 decades, she too had finally agreed to step down after this historic day. Reed smiled as he looked at the gleaming building. Unlike the imposing, hierarchical design of the Council chamber, the Grand Assembly building was circular, with sweeping arches that connected the different sections rather than separating them. Representatives from over 100 species moved through the open corridors, their voices creating a symphony of languages. "When they turned us away, I never imagined this would be the result," Reed admitted. "I thought we had lost our chance to join the galactic community." Torres laughed softly. "Instead, we built a better one." They walked together through the main entrance, where Admiral Walker waited to escort them to the inaugural session. Around them, the building buzzed with activity as the final preparations were made for the historic gathering. "Is it true that Council representatives are attending?" Reed asked. Walker nodded. "Yes, and not just as observers." After the Battle of Threshold Point, everything changed. The Council's military enforcement branch was dissolved by vote of their own members. High Chancellor Vex was removed from power. "The new leadership has requested formal diplomatic relations, and we agreed." Reed raised an eyebrow. "With conditions," Torres replied. "The new Galactic Assembly will replace both the Council and our alliance structures. Every species will have equal representation, regardless of their history or technology level." They entered the main chamber, a perfect circle with seats arranged in concentric rings, rather than the tiered hierarchy of the old Council. At the center stood a platform with a simple podium, designed at a height accessible to species of various sizes. The chamber ceiling was a massive dome that showed the actual stars above New Dawn, a reminder of the vastness they all shared. "It's time," Walker said, checking his timepiece. "They're ready for you, Ambassador Reed." Reed straightened his formal diplomatic uniform, the same one he had worn 25 years ago on Centaurus Station, carefully preserved for this moment. "Are you ready for this, James?" Torres asked quietly. Reed nodded. "I've been waiting 25 years to finish my speech." The chamber fell silent as Reed approached the central podium. Around him sat representatives from across the galaxy, members of the former Alliance, Independent Worlds, and yes, former Council species. Among them, he recognized the crystalline form of a luminar and the star-speckled skin of a voidborn, now seated as equals alongside humans, Nilari, Kareth, and dozens of others. 25 years ago, Reed began, his voice clear and strong despite his age. "I stood before the Galactic Council seeking admission for humanity. I was told that we were too unpredictable, too dangerous to join the galactic community." He paused, looking around the chamber. They were right, but not in the way they thought. Humanity is unpredictable. We faced rejection and chose creation over resentment. We encountered barriers and found ways through them rather than submitting to them. We met new species and offered partnership instead of conquest. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The old council believed order came from control, from older species guiding younger ones, from maintaining traditions that had lasted for millennia. What we discovered in the dark sectors was that true strength comes from diversity, from the combining of different perspectives, from allowing each voice to contribute regardless of how long they've been among the stars. Reed gestured to the chamber around them. This galactic assembly represents a new approach, not a council that judges who is worthy, not an alliance formed in response to rejection, but a true union of all willing species, each with one vote, each with an equal voice. From the front row, a Luminar representative rose. Unlike High Chancellor Vex with his rigid posture, this Luminar's crystalline form flowed more freely, reflecting the light in gentler patterns. Ambassador Reed speaks wisdom, the Luminar said. For 10,000 years, my species helped lead the council, believing we were preserving order. We forgot that the greatest strengths come not from control but from adaptation, something humans reminded us of through their actions rather than their words. The Voidborn representative stood next. When we rejected Earth's petition, we believed we were protecting the galaxy from an unpredictable element. Instead, we pushed that element to create something that has ultimately strengthened us all. The Battle of Threshold Point showed us what we had become, and what we could be instead. One by one, representatives rose to speak. Those who had been part of the alliance from its early days, those who had joined later, and former council members who had chosen this new path. As the session continued, Reed stepped back from the podium and rejoined Taurus and Walker. Not bad for a species that was told to stay in their solar system, Torres said with a smile. Reed watched the proceedings with satisfaction. Do you know what the most popular story is throughout the galaxy now? Earth was banned from the council, so they made their own empire. It's told on hundreds of worlds, in countless languages. Walker shook his head. But what we built isn't an empire. Empires conquer. We connected. That's why the story is so powerful, Reed replied. It reminds everyone that rejection doesn't have to be the end. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a better path. As the day continued, the first official acts of the new Galactic Assembly were recorded. Trade agreements were standardized. Mutual defense pacts were signed. Scientific cooperation initiatives were launched. The barriers around the dark sectors were officially classified as protected transit routes rather than dangerous boundaries. That evening, Reed stood on the observation deck of the assembly building, looking up at the stars. A young Nilari approached, its 4 arms carrying a recording device. Ambassador Reed, the Nilari said respectfully, I am documenting the history of this day for future generations. May I ask you one question? Reed nodded. When humans were first rejected by the council, did you ever imagine this outcome? Reed looked out at the city of New Dawn, where beings from hundreds of worlds now lived and worked together. In the distance, ships of diverse designs arrived and departed from the spaceport, carrying the news of the new Galactic Assembly to worlds throughout the galaxy. No, he admitted honestly. But that's the thing about humans. We're unpredictable. The Nilari's large eyes blinked in what Reed had come to recognize as their version of laughter. That, the young historian said, is exactly why the galaxy needed you.